Welcome into Ringer HQ. We're here live after Game 4. I'm Tate Frazier, and I am joined by the group chat guys. We got Woz in the building, Justin Verrier in the building, and what did we just witness, Justin? We just saw something happen in real time. The sweep is no longer there. Paul Pierce said he got the script. The sweep was, impending. It was not the case. The Mavs blow out this game. Your first reactions after what we just saw?
I think my question is, and our question is...
I like a question, yeah.
Did Windy spark this? Did he galvanize the Dallas Mavericks to get off the schneid and finally push back against the Celtics? That's the big question.
Yeah, Windy went at Luka, and Luka in this game was incredible. And the Mavs, 16 of their first 19 points in the paint. Yep. The only basket they made outside of the paint was Derek Lively's first career three-pointer. So Dallas was incredible to start this game. Your thoughts, Wos?
I just think they beat Boston to the punch to start the game. Boston looked like a team that was up 3-0 and in cruise control, which is funny because throughout this entire series, what I've been most impressed about is how locked in Boston has been on both ends of the floor in terms of knowing where they want to attack, being in the right spots, getting to the loose balls. Like, how many times have they poked stuff from behind from Kyrie and Luka, just not giving up on plays? And that just wasn't the case tonight. They was just getting blown by, guys scoring in the paint. They gave up a bunch of offensive boards in the first half, which is also a sign of, effort plays or whatever. But it's like I always say, man, no NBA Finals starts until the team goes up 3-0. So
do you say that?
That's what we always say, right?
That'd be the first time I've heard that, but I believe you.
We got a lot of history tonight. This was the least amount of points a Joe Mazzulla team has ever put up in a half. That was something to point out. We also had a situation where, the Mavs get up their largest lead ever in this series, and they get up, is the largest we've seen in 50 years in the NBA Finals. So as we spin it forward a little bit, I mean, are the Mavericks in this series? Do we have a series? I think that is the big question that everyone is, looking around saying, should I care about Game 5, or is this a gentleman's sweep?
I think the question is, did the Mavs at the very least find a formula that is repeatable?
Derek Lively said he did. He said we figured out their schemes, end quote.
We'll see.
Yeah, we will see.
But I do think that the one thing that was different about this game, one, Luka seemed like he was attacking and able to do so without really much effort from Boston on the other side. I also wonder if they kind of exploited the fact that the Celtics don't really have much rim protection.
Right.
Like Al Horford is in there trying to hold his own. And as we've seen throughout these postseasons, it's just Al has been attacked. And it seemed like Luka was specifically driving in there relentlessly and kind of forcing them to figure it out on the fly. And so I do wonder that plus all of the bench guys rising to form. The Mavs bench was incredible, whereas like the Celtics starters even could barely hit a shot. So a lot of extremes, but I do think there's probably something there if you squint hard enough.
So what happens early is that Al gets into foul trouble.
Two fouls.
Two quick fouls, and Xavier Tillman has to come into the game. And that finally allows Dallas to play their standard defense, which is keeping one of their great defensive bigs by the rim at all points without having to worry about leaking from the three-point line. Because Tillman, even though he's made a couple of threes in the last two games, he's not a threat from three. Or he's not a threat to the level that Big Al, and certainly not Kristaps Porzingis, right? And I think they got comfortable on defense, and then they started not just getting blown by after two moves by every single perimeter play on Dallas. And it's crazy how you could look when you do your foot fires, Tate, like when you actually keep the man in front of you. So it just felt like effort was there. For the first time on the Dallas ledger, they could say, we won the effort battle tonight. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's nothing complicated has happened scheme-wise, right? Like, this isn't like, for an example, when Golden State went down to Memphis 2-1 in 2015, right before they won their first championship. Everybody was like, oh, my God, this team's a fraud. And then they said, you know what? We're going to put Bogut on Tony Allen, not guard him, and we're going to completely shut off their water. And that changed the series. Like, that was a big counterintuitive, adjustment that completely changed the face of the series. That's not what happened tonight.
Yeah, but I do think the fact that Kristaps wasn't in there, they finally leaned on that and got an advantage out of that in the way that they didn't in the previous game, because Lively looked like an all-NBA center in this, and then Gafford kind of took over in the second half there. It looked like those guys were spurred, and maybe that was just Luka getting what he wanted, and that opened things up. We'll see. But they were playing with effort in a way that, like, we haven't seen all finals for those guys. And so, like, it's not like, is Al going to be able to match that? Is Tillman, who did a good job playing defense, shuffling his feet with Luka, going to be able to match that? I'm not totally sure.
And it did feel like in Game 3, they were still seeing the ghost of Kristaps Porzingis, right? When they would go into the basket, those lobs really weren't there. This was the first time we saw the verticality of Dallas that we saw them use in the first 3 rounds to get here. So it did feel familiar in a sense. Porzingis, Mazzulla said he would break in case of emergency if he needed Porzingis. He did go through warm-ups. It felt like an emergency
Seems like
kind
going
of
down
moment.
30 in the first half might be an emergency. I don't know.
I would think so, but I mean, I don't know if Kristaps could swing it that quickly, but they do miss him defensively. I mean, that rim protection is very noticeable, and it's something that really stood out in this game where Dallas is like, oh, wait a second. This guy's not here. Superman's not going to come save the day. Let's get back to throwing lobs and getting downhill.
But I wonder, though, on the Porzingis front, would a man of God ever lie to us about the injury status of one of his best players in the finals? Do you think that could happen?
Is that one of the commandments?
I don't know. It might be. I
haven't boned up in my catechism.
I got to brush
lately.
up on my Old Testament.
Well,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a good Samaritan, I'm sure, and maybe he'll go back and figure that out. It is fascinating, though. Like, Porzingis is the wrinkle that could determine what this looks like. I mean,
absolutely.
They do need him, right, at some level.
They do. I think the one thing that, if you're a Celtics fan, you could find hope in is the fact that pretty much everyone played awful.
Yes.
Right.
Regardless of what the Mavs did, and they deserve a lot of credit for
especially
getting this
defensively,
win.
right? They got shredded.
Yeah, they could have just laid an egg in this game, come out flat, 4-0, it's over, and gone home. Gone to Cabo. Everyone would have had a great time. No one would have looked at it differently. But I think practically every Celtic had one of the worst games that they've had, where it felt like Jaylen Brown was just throwing up bricks.
Yep.
Drew Holiday could not hit a shot, which he tends to do.
Something that happens every now and again, yeah.
There was one stretch in the second quarter, which I wrote down, where Luka stabbed the ball away from Jaylen Brown, trying to isolate on Luka. And I was like, huh. And then Drew Holiday missed wide open at the rim.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown clanked a 3. And then Derek White airballed a 3.
Which is wild.
It was a comedy of errors the entire night.
Yeah, and Boston just felt like they were searching for answers. It did feel like the expectation was at some point they would find their legs, they would get into this game. They don't do that, and now we have a situation where everyone is going to try to prognosticate and forecast what the future looks like of this series. But internally, if you're Jason Kidd and the Dallas Mavericks, is there any sort of confidence? We're 0-156 all time in a 3-0 series in the finals. So we have never seen this ever happen. I mean, is there any belief? They called them the greatest backcourt ever, greatest offensive backcourt. Could they pull something great off and actually make a comeback?
I think there's something to actually seeing yourself complete the mission once, right? Like actually execute your defense, actually get great results from your game plan, actually see the ball go in finally from 3, even to a limited degree before the crazy Tim Hardaway stuff in garbage
15
time.
points in 6 minutes for Tim
Let's
Hardaway
go.
Jr. Michael
Start him.
Wilbon's dream. This is
Start
what he
him.
wanted.
Start him. I think there's something to gaining that confidence. Like, yo, we have the ability to beat this team. I think there's something to that. But I do think their disadvantages still exist in terms of guarding Boston. Because I think that, I'm back and forth about which has been more disappointing for Dallas this series. Their offense, which was one of the best in the NBA all year, completely failing them, or their defense, which after the All-Star break, after the trade deadline trades,
Was
has
number
been
one.
freaking elite.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And the fact that neither one of them have been able to play up to their level, not even close. I'm not sure which one's more disappointing, but both of them showed up today. So you got to have confidence from seeing yourself play like yourself against a team that's just, beating your brains in for 3 games previously.
And the Celtics, not the most sure team, not the
Sure.
most team you could have the most confidence in. They
Right.
tend to go wax and wane like this. I mean, we could say the math will eventually just swing back the other way, but they've gotten themselves into those situations where they just can't dig themselves out of some of the mess that they've created. I think if you were to play the other opposite of that, though, is when you looked at the halftime box score, when the game was practically in hand, it didn't look all that different than when the Mavs were losing. Like, Luka went absolutely off. I think he had 25 points at halftime. But there really wasn't much else. Yeah, Lively, Gafford, which we talked about. But, P.J. Washington, as I'm looking at the final, 6 points. Derek Jones Jr., 5 points. Kyrie Irving even only had 21, made 1 for 6 of his threes. Luka 0 for 8. So it's like Did much change on that front, or did the Celtics just have a god-awful game? How much do we correlate that to what the Mavs did? Obviously some, but I think if you're the Celtics, you have to kind of just flush this game, and I think that's typically what Mazzulla would do. He just leans back on what he has done and hopes that the process overcomes the results.
Yeah, he goes back and watches the town tonight, as he always does,
exactly.
and then I think he figures it out, right? I mean, this is their first loss on the road, we should say. I mean, talking about how great Boston has been in the playoffs. They were 7-0 on the road. This is their first loss on the road. Eventually, you're going to lose on the road.
Sure.
So it's almost like, of course, an expectation at some level. So not something to really freak out about.
I think the only thing that's been different, this game, is the play of the bigs. We mentioned the offensive boards, but also Gafford was doing a good job of just getting to the line, drawing fouls, playing like a big man.
How about that closeout on Tatum, that three? I mean, to show the versatility to be like, I don't just protect the rim, I'll close out on your shooters.
I think the bigs played big for once.
Yes.
In this series. That's the only thing that looked different to my eye, is like, oh, okay, they were actually bludgeoning them on the rebounds, using their size advantage. Like, whenever Gafford is getting fouls, it's not because he's doing like Hakeem post moves. It's because he's like got a size advantage, he's pressing, he's being aggressive, and he's getting sent to the line. So I think that's something you can hang your hat on. Like, our bigs played markedly better than they had the previous 3 games.
And what's the answer for Boston, right, without Porzingis? I mean, that's really the question. I mean, is it Luke Cornett? I mean, obviously Tillman has played some. Brissett got some late garbage time minutes. Maybe he's the guy that they throw in there. But Boston, I mean, if the bigs play like that for Dallas, they have to have some sort of, tactical, hey, we're going to do this if you guys do that. And, I mean, Porzingis, the health is still the question mark. So that's really the concern if you're Boston. It's like, where do we go if Porzingis is not the answer?
Yeah, I think you look at the big man shuffle, as Waz is kind of alluding to. Like, are we playing Tillman more in certain instances, if only to just kind of take advantage of the fact that he's moving his feet well on the perimeter? Do we even try to break open the O'Shea Brissett, the Luke Cornets, just if only to get a little bit more stretch there, because that does kind of play into their overall advantage in this series. And I just think you just lean on your mathematical advantage that you've been pressing on this entire series, which is like, we're going to take 40 goddamn threes. And you're going to have to keep up with us, our collective offense, as just Luka and Kyrie. And like, we'll see. I mean, Luka and Kyrie together can kind of combat that, but so far the being able to guard those guys one-on-one has really just unlocked the rest of what the Celtics want to do. And I think they're not going to break away from that until they get at least one more win there. And even that, Mazzulla's not the type of guy who really wants to go away from what works. He kind of has that Mike Budenholzer gene in him.
Very stubborn. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't know. I think you just roll it back, make some minor adjustments on the tactical side, and see what goes.
Yeah, I think to me, Boston's engine is their offense, although their defense has been excellent in this series.
I think you're right. When they make threes, their defense turns up.
Yeah,
right?
it's to me their identity is on offense, and like they just have to be more patient, more deliberate in their attack. It just felt very freewheeling and it just unfocused in this game. And if they're just disciplined in where they choose to attack, the quickness with which they attack, I think their offense will get back on track. And if they're, staying in, like, where you don't get blown out by 30, where you could be like, all right, we're in contact in the fourth, put pressure on the team whose back is against the wall to actually execute and save their season, I think that's got to be the game plan to me.
I want to circle back to what we started with, which was Wendy calling out Luka. And just in general, I feel like everybody was calling out Luka. People were calling him out of shape. We talked about on the last show about exasperation, right? I mean, Luka just seemed like he was tired and worn out. In this game, he was not. Dante Exum was bringing the ball up a little bit, still getting him the ball to start the offense, kind of saved him from getting turned going up the court. Also, he gets to sit out with 127 in the third quarter. He didn't play the last 4 minutes of the last game because he fouled out. I mean, Luka has saved his legs, and it does feel like, he's not as worn down as maybe he would have been if some things went the other way. I mean, is that encouraging if you're Luka and you're the Dallas Mavs as well?
Did he get a beer in between games 3 and 4? I think is
Michael Finley is on the hunt right now. He's like, where is the beer guy? Yeah, I got to stop him.
Another conspiracy theory.
But clearly the Mavs had everything to lose in this game, and Luka in particular. Like, he had done a good job up until game 3, kind of keeping his Luka-ness, his like rage, quite frankly, in check. And it just kind of went off the rails there. And you saw when he did the sit-down interview with ESPN, he clearly was doing damage control. And to his credit, like, I do think he takes a lot of this stuff personally and kind of takes the blame for the rest of his team. And so, like,
I appreciate it. He said, my bad.
Yeah, right.
Officially.
Which he was quite bad in that game.
Yeah, right.
So, it was deserved. But, like, the Mavs really, like, had every reason to go out and go balls to the walls here, like lively flying around there. And the Celtics just kind of just didn't match that. And so you would hope being in front of your home crowd finally, that would make the difference. But there's 3 days until the next game.
Yep,
Does
Monday
that
night.
help a Luka or maybe KP's knee all of a sudden? Maybe he takes a trip to Turkey or something like that,
Yeah, I heard they're still spinning blood in Germany. I think the Windhorst thing, obviously, Wendy's my guy, one. And two, like, I completely agree with him.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, criticism is criticism, and sometimes it's warranted.
He
you know
was
what
just
I mean?
right. Like, he looked like a dog on those 4 fouls in 7 minutes or whatever it was. Like, you look bad, and part of the logic too, guys, is like maybe if you don't completely embarrass yourself on defense, like cry to the refs and give up open threes because you're way back court, getting back on defense, that you don't have to be Superman. You don't have to drop 40 in order for your team to succeed. Maybe executing on those things makes it so that you don't have to put a cape on every possession. I think that's what Wendy was getting at. And so I'm sure Luka heard people killing him, for the past few days, and deservedly so. And again, and that's the thing. When you see Luka do stuff like this, it's like we know it's in you. And so
that's where the
what
criticism
makes
kind of comes from.
Yeah,
Right?
we know you are capable of doing better than this. You guys will remember when Devin Booker and Chris Paul, after going up, I think 2-0, and in the game that they went up 2-0 against the Mavericks, this would have been 2022, they were hunting the hell out of Luka and frying him.
And talking about it.
And they laughed at him. They embarrassed him at that press conference. And Luka sacked up and started playing defense. I mean, goddamn, if he wasn't.
And he was
Scottie
laughing
Pippen
in the
after
end.
that,
Yeah.
Those
Right.
Balkans are
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
So
worst
he
thing you
felt,
can do to
yeah,
them.
he felt like, oh, okay. And he's been cooking Devin Booker ever since, by the way.
Yeah. And looking at him dead in the eyes as he does it. Right?
And so that's what I think happened in this game. Some pride kicked in.
Yes.
We needed to see some pride in this series
Hell
because there was a level where I think some people were checked out. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the finals felt over. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Basketball is moving on from us. So it
Moving
is
on
nice.
to the draft.
Yeah, right.
Moving
It is
on to free agency.
It's nice to get a little bit of juice back into the series.
Yeah, totally.
And I will say it does when you're one of those teams, and we hear it a lot, once you see the trophies in the building, right? If you're Game 5, looking forward to Game 5 for your Boston Celtics, you get there to the arena, you see Adam Silver, you see Larry O'Brien, you see the champagne bottles, you're the Boston Celtics, there's an expectation on you to go win this championship as you're supposed to do. When they've had pressure from those fans and been in Boston, they have had a proclivity to maybe tighten up a little bit. Are we worried that, seeing that and then having that vibe and almost like you better do this. If you don't, we're going to have – is there anything that could get in the head of these Celtics? Because, I mean, that would be reverting back to the old ways of this team.
They see Bill's dad.
Yeah.
Like,
Dr. Bill's like, get the job done.
That's right. I definitely think it will help being at home. Oddly enough, they played so well on the road. I don't totally understand how that happened because they were also a pretty damn good road home team to the point where they almost like broke a record. They were like on a record pace at home there. So I just ultimately lean on the fact that I just think that they have the advantage in this series. It's just more about execution at this point.
So the one thing I will say about being home is the Tatum thing, where the Boston fans just have a strange relationship with Tatum. Where when he's not executing at his best, it's not like all right, you got it, Jason. The next one's like,
Here we go again.
It's like, it's like a groan every time he misses a step back.
And you can feel it in the
No,
building.
absolutely.
Right.
Everybody
worry about
says
Deuce.
that.
Like, what's Deuce up
Yeah.
to?
People are looking at Deuce like, tell your dad.
They gotta get a leash for Deuce. Somebody gotta get Deuce. The Deuce is just, he's all over the place. It's the finals.
He's the face of
we
the league.
need some lock-in. I'm sorry. The kid taking the warm-ups
new
on
logo.
the finals. I just can't see that as a positive for the team. But I do wonder what it will be like going home. But ultimately, it's a 3-1 lead. And even, I don't know. I just have a hard time feeling like there's some grand pressure on Boston now that, they're back home and they didn't sweep, that they're, facing a gentleman's sweep instead. I think it's fine. But yeah, Tatum, he needs to be better in the next game because, I've been somebody who's thought that the criticism has been a bit harsh. Today was 2022 Tatum. Driving into turnovers, terrible
Getting
step backs, getting frustrated, bricking layups. It was like actual bad Tatum, actually not, creating the advantage, spraying out the shooters, being the engine of the offense. He was like legitimately horrible today. But like Justin said, it's not like he was by himself in that.
Drew Holiday was not great in this game.
Drew Holiday was tough. Yeah, he looked more like Milwaukee Drew Holiday today. But I don't know. I think Tatum just needs to play better for sure.
Yeah.
And he went 4 of 10 today. He upped his final shooting percentage, if you could believe that, by going 4 of 10.
Yeah, I do feel like it is funny, like with the Tatum stuff. It's like a foregone conclusion. He is the best player. We all know that. But then in this series, everyone's trying to dissect Jason Kidd, tried to put like a little bit of seed of dissent within those two guys. Is there any chance that they go back and forth and they're like, we need to figure something out like after this game? Or, is there anything that Boston could do where they're frustrated internally? Or is it kind of like, hey, we knew we were going to have a stinker on the road at some point. We're going to go back to Boston, handle business.
I think if you're Boston, you're just worried that this does kind of lean on your pain point, which is that this isn't actually probably something basketball. It's probably more psychological.
Yeah.
Like this team, as we've seen, does have a proclivity
to play with their food.
Yeah. Yes. And then like when things get tight, it's not usually the best situation. I think there's been a lot of discussion about the Celtics in crunch time because they actually do have a pretty immaculate crunch time record in these postseason. But I think what's lost in that discussion is the fact that they were up so much that they have such a buffer because
you're up 15.
Yeah, right. And it gets down to like 8. It's not like these are like always 1-point games going back and forth the entire time. It's like a big swing from the other team and they just kind of counter. They have executed very well down the stretch, including in game 3. But some of those go the other way. Maybe in that game 3, Luka doesn't foul out all of a sudden. You have him to kind of play off of Kyrie, and it's a little bit different. Now Kyrie isn't taking every shot. I can see those margins starting to slim a little bit. So if you're going to play devil's advocate here, yeah, like the Celtics getting into close games, that's the worst case scenario for them.
And Kyrie did, walking out of TD Garden after game 2, he did, put up number 5 to the crowd. There were people saying that he was saying game 5.
Did he have Sage with him?
I don't know. All I know is that he lost.
Was saying we'll be back for game 5.
Then some people were saying that he was saying give me a high five. I don't know what. I don't know what 5 he was talking about.
Did you see Bob Cousy's?
He said I'm 95 and I need to see number 18. Cousy's not. He's not playing around.
He said Kyrie has been proven. He's been exposed for not being a superstar anymore. He's older. The Celtics exposed them.
I feel like if I was Cousy, I would do a live stream while JJ Redick's calling the finals, and I would try to do a better job. You know what I mean? Like after he said I played with plumbers, you know what I mean? I'm like,
maybe he could take over for JJ when he goes coach Lakers.
There you go. That could be a nice move.
Strong.
Last thing that I want to hit, just as far as like predictions, is it over in Boston Monday night, or are we going to see banner number 18 in Boston? Do we think it's going to be there? If we had to make a prediction, I don't like predictions, but that's what the people want.
I think so. I think the Celtics probably come out with the same sense of urgency that the Mavs do. There's just like so much leading into this for the Celtics. Like it's something I've been tracking kind of quietly. It's just like I think this feels anticlimactic in a sense, the Celtics winning this title, because we've expected it for them for so goddamn long.
We talked about it for so long. I feel like every offseason it's like, let's look at who the favorites are to win the title for next year. Boston's the favorite.
This core was in the conference finals in 2020.
Against LeBron and the Cavs.
Like
that was a long ass time ago. And so it almost feels like their anointment, like we've already accepted it years ago. And even in this playoffs where obviously the road was a little softer than it was in the Western Conference. And so like we've been waiting for this for so long, it almost feels like, we've accepted it.
Yeah,
already.
Cash the check
yes.
already.
And so
we signed it a long time ago.
I almost wonder if like the Celtics have a little bit of that going for them, and to kind of get the motivation going, I wonder if that's what they need in order to push this over.
Yeah, I just don't see how they lose 4 times in a row. Outside
0-156 all time. No, we've never seen it.
0-156. Outside of a tweaked ankle, a messed up wrist from a fall,
which is why you don't play with your food.
A bum shoulder, like outside of something like that happened to one of the Jays or Drew or Derek White, it's hard for me to see them lose. So even if they somehow lose a game 5, it's just hard for me to see that this series is much of a problem. Now, if they go out and they lose game 5 in a fashion that's similar to this one, meaning Dallas is just guarding them way better, stymieing their one-on-one stuff, making them play like iso ball the entire time in the half court, killing them on the boards again, Luka and Kyrie feeling like they can shake loose against whoever's guarding them one-on-one. If they lose in similar fashion, then I'll be like, damn. But if it's just, another, whatever, bang, bang kind of loss and, make or miss league stuff, I'm still just not too worried.
Yeah, I'm not too worried either. I do think it is insurmountable. Historically, we've seen that. One last thing, I forgot to mention this. Finals MVP, everyone's talking about this. Jaylen Brown was the favorite going into this game. I don't think he hurt himself. But now I see people chattering about Luka moving up potentially. Like they're trying to pull a Jerry West here, where they're saying like the Boston Celtics could win in 5, but Luka was the best player in the series.
No.
We can't have that, right? That can't happen.
No.
Jaylen Brown right now is the finals
I don't
MVP.
believe in the loser getting the MVP.
I don't either.
Jaylen Brown was really bad in this game.
He was bad. He was bad today.
That's
but
what
he's
everyone's saying. But
he's
Luka was
been
bad in game
damn
3.
good
Right.
3 out of the 4 games. Like, he's been awesome,
he
basically. And awesome in big ways. He made a huge shot in game 3, like a huge clutch, tough shot. Like, and he's been the guy relentlessly going to the rack, getting
After
out
a
in
Tatum missed
transition.
step back 3, too.
Yeah,
Which helped, I think, with the
I
optics.
have no problem giving it to Jaylen Brown. No problem with that.
Here's the thing. It's going to go to one of the Jays.
Yeah.
It's going to be Tatum or it's going to be Brown. Probably whoever plays better in the closeout game.
Right.
Let's all agree.
Yeah.
I think you can make the case that Luka has been the best individual player in the series.
He's 1,000% been the best individual player.
So if we're going by the letter of the law,
No.
like I actually think he would deserve it, but will he get it? Should he get it? I'm not so sure.
It does feel like, I think there's like 11 votes, and it's like beat writers and everyone that's involved in it, maybe a random
Highly
national reporter.
scientific process.
Yeah, right. It
yes.
seems very like, wait a second, what's going on here? But it does feel like one person might vote for Luka.
Tim Bontemps.
Yeah, there you go. One person might vote for Luka, and that would
I
be
love
like
it.
a nice moment. You know what I mean? Maybe a little hat tip to Jerry West. Any other bold predictions that we expect to see in this series? Like any wrinkle maybe from the
Bold
Dallas Mavericks where they're like
prediction.
Tim Hardaway Jr. is starting in Game 5. Michael Wilbon's dream. Anything that we could see that might break your brain a little bit, like Porzingis. Maybe he's playing.
Are you just setting us up for an Exum discussion?
Yeah, I'm just saying,
God.
Dante Exum, he changed things.
Yeah, Dante
they took a
Exum
3
is
away
alive.
from him. They took a 3 away from my man, and he got another one. He
got
said,
it.
Whole different
He said,
series.
"Bo, don't lie, I got you."
Look, I don't see any major change. I think another development from this game, Luka looks way more comfortable attacking Horford than he did early on in the series. Horford's doing a great job in isolation early on. This game is just like when he gets him out to the 3-point line, he's setting up his move and just blowing by the guy. And so that's something I think bears monitoring, where it's like, okay, he's found like his guy that he could easily attack. Obviously, Derek White being like 100 pounds lighter and 8 inches shorter has always been a guy he could attack. I think that's something to watch for in terms of the Mavericks offense. But any bold predictions? No, I don't see Tim Hardaway getting into it, get fried by every single ball handler on
warmed
the
up now.
Celtics.
Tim Hardaway Sr. sitting over there like, that's my kid. Put
That's
him
right.
in. Put him in, kid.
No, I think Kristaps is obviously the big one, but I
Right.
think it's more about if he's not going to play, how they handle the trickle-down effect. Because as we saw kind of in this game, like the bench, like I do think it's something we should probably highlight here just toward the end. It's like the disparity that typically has gone the Celtics' way. And the fact that the Mavs bench thoroughly outplayed the Celtics bench is something to note, because like they're going to have to lean on the Tillman minutes if KP isn't in there. And if not, then they have to start getting creative with who they fill in that spot. And also Hauser, honestly, when he's hitting shots the other game, it made a significant difference. And so I do wonder if like he is going, maybe that tilt things more in the direction of the Celtics because of how much the 3-pointers are key to their success. But like if Lively's going to just shoot off the bench and just kind of play just rollerball out there, and like Kleba with one arm is going to hit a 3 or 2.
In a big
like,
3 in this game, yeah.
I do think that matters in so much as it just like kind of just keeps things going in the Mavs direction. So I would look toward the bench.
Well, Peyton Pritchard hit his second shot of the series finally in garbage time. That was good news for
Yeah.
Celtics fans.
He's looked like Thanasis Antetokounmpo.
Well,
this
hey,
series,
he
if
needed
we're
to see
being
one
honest.
get in. He needed to see one get in. That's all that matters.
Sam Hauser, I've been quite impressed with.
Defensively, too. I mean, you
Defensively,
kind of had a
he's holding
Freudian
up.
slip. I mean, Sam Hauser's defense has been great. I
He's
mean,
been
whether it's on
pretty good.
Kyrie or whoever.
Don't say great. Rob Mahoney somewhere punching the air, hearing you compliment Sam Hauser's defense. But
He's been good.
yeah, Peyton Pritchard's just not been it. Like at all.
No, I'm not asking you to break. Don't worry. You don't have to break that.
No. I'm just saying. Once Al is no longer one of your bench guys,
Yeah.
like that bench doesn't look as amazing anymore. I think Xavier Tillman did a yeoman's effort. I think he did pretty good against Luka, particularly.
He had the
on
size,
his,
right?
on his
Physically.
switches. But again, he allows Dallas to play their preferred method of defense, and so it's trade-offs, man. And again, I don't see how KP goes from basically missing 2 games in a row to coming in and killing. Like, this isn't like the weeks stretch where he misses first round, second round conference finals and comes back. This is just coming right back off of an injury that was severe enough for him to get no minutes in the NBA finals, right? I don't know. I think the bench stuff is something to definitely keep your eye on.
Well, as Pat Riley says, there's a difference between hurt and injured. I feel like Porzingis might be injured and not hurt. You know what I mean? And I feel like we talk about it like he's hurt, but I think it might be an injury. So that is a something to definitely worry about and watch and keep an eye on as we move forward. Barry,
So
you got anything
I'm going to
else?
blow your mind here. I wonder if the adjustment that the Mavs made was the no adjustment, right? How many times do we see teams win a game at this point in the series where they're like, I'm going to play this guard as a center. They get really extreme with some of the lineup adjustments. I do think it's probably worth noting that the Mavs didn't do anything different, and they blew the fuck out of this game, right? And so I wonder if that's the mode going forward. Like maybe the Celtics do the same, or maybe we start seeing, I don't know, Kata back in there.
Well, I mean, maybe Kid took something out of Missoula's book. I mean, Missoula, very stubborn, doesn't like to make changes, wants to kind of do what the plan is. And Jason Kidd said, I'll double down and I'll do the same thing. I'll be stubborn.
It's almost like he's by the book.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There you go.
You like that, Barry?
That was good. That was good.
That's good stuff. Appreciate everybody tuning in. These guys are the best. Can you plug group chat? I know you guys are doing a show on Sunday morning as well.
You got to find that on the Ringer NBA podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, us and Real Ones with Logan Murdoch. And why am I blanking on?
No, that's the feed.
That's the feed.
Well, you got Howard Beck on,
Yeah,
Mondays,
Howard
right?
and Raja Bell is this legend. I don't know why I'm blanking on Raja Bell.
Yeah, live show. Tuesday.
Live show.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
That's what I want to promote.
TheRinger.com/events. June
Yes.
18th,
Right.
8 p.m. El Rey Theater in Los Angeles. I've done this 90 times over the past few
That's
months.
what I wanted you guys to say. There's a Ringer live show. Go check these guys out. Chris Ryan will be there. Kyle Mann will be there. I will be there in attendance watching you guys.
Whoa.
Kyle Crichton
Look at
will
that.
be there. Look at
There
us.
you go.
Friends supporting friends, you know what I mean, here at Ringer NBA. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully we have a fun game after Game 5 to talk about.
I can feel it.
You can feel it. Wos
Yeah.
can feel it. I hope you can feel it at home. Appreciate you watching us. And we will be back on Monday night, and we'll see you then.